Step in, out of the damp, my friend. Go on, pull up a chair by the fire. You've come looking for an explainer, haven't you? An accounting of the dark, rotting history of a ship we called the Morning Star. Now, you might be expecting a standard maritime history lesson, but listen to me, I was there. I felt the freezing spray of the Sargasso Rift on my face. I watched a good man, a man of absolute logic and light, get hollowed out by the abyss. So I'm not going to show you the haunting of some old creaky house, no. I'm going to show you the haunting of human sanity itself. Welcome to the Morning Star inversion. Inventory for the deep. Just whisper that to yourself for a second. Feel that little chill at the base of your neck. Yeah, that phrase wasn't written by a man anymore. It was written by the sea itself, just using a man's hand to hold the pen. You see, the ocean doesn't look at us as brave sailors or merchants or explorers. No, to the deep, we're just supply. Let's dive right into Section 1. The Unhomely Sea, the Victorian Comforts Twisted. Now, us Victorian sailors, we built our entire lives on comforts, right? On logic, on the safety of commerce, the precise ticking of a brass clock, the steady burn of a lantern. But what happens when the abyss takes those exact comforts and wears them like a mask? Well, the scholars call it the unheimlich, the unhomely. And it's absolutely crucial to understand, because this is the psychological shift that doomed us. It's that terrifying pit-of-your-stomach realization that a familiar, safe figure, like our captain, a man who sought the light, has been completely hollowed out. Everything you trust is still standing right there in his coat and boots, but the inside? The inside has been scooped out and refilled with the forbidden basement of the world. Our captain, he was a good merchant, a steady hand, a true man of logic. But the sea took him and left us with this monument of bone. He looked exactly like a man, but he was a predator. He was totally empty inside, treating us, his living, breathing crew, not as men, but just as inventory to be cataloged. Which brings us to Section 2, the needle points down, the parable of the broken chronometer. Let me tell you the first of 3 parables from that voyage. Picture this. Down in our stateroom, surrounded by the comforting brass and clocks precision of the ship, sat a young midshipman. Now, to this boy, the compass was a holy thing. It was this stone of certainty pointing north to safety, to the harbor, to home. But as we drifted into the Sargasso Rift, the captain walked over. He reached out a hand that had gone pale, pale as drowned linen, and he touched the glass of the compass. Instantly, the needle started this violent, sickening spin, and then it just snapped. Straight down, not pointing toward any horizon. It pointed downward through the floorboards, straight down to the ocean floor. We call this uncanny displacement. It's the freezing realization that the instruments of our well-lit world are utterly useless in the cellar of the deep. The instrument was still there, sure, but its soul had been inverted. And as that needle pointed down to the abyss, the captain looked at this poor, shivering midshipman. And when he spoke, I swear to you, it didn't come from a human throat. It sounded like the rattle of dry pebbles on a beach. He just whispered, "The stars have no eyes, boy." At that moment, the logic of the sky above us died. Only the dark below mattered. Moving to Section 3, a silent dinner bell, the inversion of safety. Now, this curse didn't just stay out on the water. No, it crept right up onto the shore. Imagine the proud keeper out at Rathlin Light. He's peering through the mist, and he sees our ship, the Morning Star, returning. His chest swells with pride, right? He thinks his lighthouse, his artificial sun, has guided a lost brother out of the dark. He actually rings the signal bell. It's this comforting, familiar sound that usually means a warm fire and a hot cup of tea at the end of a long watch. But as the ship glides silently into the beam of light, his pride shatters. He gets this cold shiver down his spine, because that ship isn't a returning brother. It's a monument of bone, riding unnaturally low in the water. See, this is the true inversion of safety. That lighthouse was built to be a shield against the dark, but the light didn't reveal human survivors. The captain standing on that deck wasn't flesh and blood anymore. He was a water vampire made entirely of saline ichor. The beam of the lighthouse didn't repel the darkness, it acted as a dinner bell. The ultimate symbol of our human protection had unintentionally summoned a predator straight from the deep, a universal collector drawn right to the flame. And that leads us to Section 4, Inventory of the Deep, the parable of the thirsty slug.
Long after the ship was finally swallowed by the fog, a piece of it actually came back. Villagers on the coast found a crate washed up from the wreckage, and inside, the captain's personal ledger. Now, under the Victorian ideal of commerce, they expected to open it and find comforting records, silk and spice, traditional trade logs, right? But as they opened the book, they saw the abyssal truth. The ink literally started dissolving into a dark, oily solvent right before their eyes. It reeked of ancient salt and, well, expired souls. And the words on the page didn't log where the ship had been. No, it listed the villagers' own names. It told them exactly where they were going. It listed them as inventory for the deep. We call this the collapse of the human subject. It's the horrific realization that to this hollowed-out thing wearing our captain's skin, the living aren't people. We aren't mothers or brothers or sailors. To him, we are simply thirst, waiting to be harvested. He's that guest at the threshold who looks just like a man, but when he looks at you, he only sees a vessel of liquid, ready to be drained down into his forbidden basement.
Now let's look at Section 5, the Palingenesio's energy, the transfiguration. You're probably wondering, how does a God-fearing man of logic literally turn into a creature of brine? Well, we have to look at the dark mechanics of it. When a man of flesh is exposed to the absolute bottom of the abyss, it introduces this specific force, palingenesis energy. This isn't just some spooky ghost story. It's a terrifying biological rewriting of the host's blood. The sea acts as a horrific solvent, literally transforming human flesh into saline ichor. That energy rebirthed him as a monument of dry bone in salt water, a creature of pure brine that just happened to mimic the shape of the man we knew. Which brings us to our final stop, Section 6, the forbidden basement, the haunting of logic. So here we are at the bitter, rotting core of the truth. Listen to me. The most terrifying ghosts in this world, they do not haunt drafty old houses. They don't haunt graveyards, no. They haunt the very logic and light we use to hide from the abyss. They haunt your compasses, your trade ledgers, your lighthouses. The true horror of the Unheimlich is knowing that your most familiar, everyday comforts can be hollowed out at any given moment. The very tools you rely on to survive, they might already belong to the deep. So, as you leave here today, as you go home and turn on that brass lamp in your warm, comfortable parlor, locking the door tight against the dark, I want you to ask yourself something. Are the lights you use to feel safe actually shields, or are they just dinner bells? Beacons calling the abyss right to your front door. Just think on that the next time you hear the sea crashing against the shore. Good luck to you.